that
Absolutely.
creates
It's
a
massive
terrible,
problem.
vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And I don't see how it ends except in catastrophe.
Yeah. Interest rate. So the RBA, unsurprisingly, last week left interest rates on hold. Adir, what do you make of all this mess?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it's totally unpredictable what's going to happen next. That's the challenge with this. I think there are just constant shocks that mostly emanate from the US. A lot of it's based on government policy. Some of it's not. It filters through to Australia. And there's this problem that exists in the West at the moment, particularly in the Western world. There's heavy government indebtedness. There's actually heavy private indebtedness relative to household income. I think Australia might be number 5.
Because our house prices are so high, of course.
But you know, what's interesting is the countries that are above Australia, they're all the Nordic countries. They have, but it's a bit different because, so in Australia, like the way I think about it with house ownership is it's a third.
Yep.
Like a third own their houses, a third
Outright,
a third have mortgages, and a third rent.
Yep, that's right.
And so the rental percentage has gone up in the last 20 years. I think
Edged up. Yeah.
I think maybe from like high 20s to kind of 30s.
Yeah, edged up, a couple of 3-4 bits.
Yeah. And so whereas in other places, like whilst the debt is higher in a place like, I don't know, Denmark and Norway, like home ownership percentage is actually significantly higher. I think 80% own their home or something like that.
Yeah.
So it is different. But Australia is very high on household debt as a percentage of disposable income. And because of property prices.
Because our banks lend so much on
That's
low
right.
property
And
prices.
if you look at the last 20 years, it's rocketed in the last 20 years. So that's very problematic. We're very susceptible to interest rate movements up.
Well, if you look at house, I think the best way to talk about house prices, not in absolute terms, is purely relative to income.
Yeah.
And it used to be,
That's right.
over the years, sort of 3 to 4, eventually sort of 5 times incomes. Now it's like 9 or 10 times.
Yeah.
Sydney's like 13, 14.
Yeah.
So this is 2 to 3x the cost of a house.
And so what you can see is that we have got almost perfect conditions right now for mortgage holders. Very low unemployment, so everyone has the money to service, and very low interest rates. So these are like, this is paradise. And even in paradise, you can see that consumer spending is under pressure from mortgage repayments in Australia. So we are very susceptible, like a 3% interest rate rise, not unrealistic. That would be devastating to, I think, the Australian economy.
We said that, but remember when interest rates were 1 or 2%, and everybody said, you know, I think you and I weren't in this bucket, but everybody said, oh, you can't put interest rates up, it's going to kill the housing, it's going to kill people who own houses. It went up to, we had the highest rate of increase in interest rates ever, went up to like, whatever, 4.5%, I think it hit, and nobody blinked an eyelid. Everybody was fine. So I actually don't think
it did hurt, and then people...
Did it hurt?
Yeah, because then house prices kept rising, and then people kept feeling rich, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, look, I've got a different view. I think if they went up another 3%, because the reason, like, think about why they would go up, right?
Yeah.
Like, because prices would be going
up. 3% is probably on the top, but I think you'd easily bring them up 150 bips, and no one would blink an eyelid.
So you've got very high national debt levels and very high personal debt levels, and governments that cannot be re-elected if they raise taxes or cut spending. And so that creates a terrible, vicious cycle, and I don't see how it ends except in catastrophe. I don't necessarily know how it ends in catastrophe, but I think it will be unpredictable. So people say, well, private credit will crash and then people will panic, I think it's the thing that you don't see that hits you, right?
Well, the problem is just the government spending is the big one. So, like, you could
they can't stop spending.
You could live with lower interest rate, as in where I'd call this interest rate level highly expansionary. It's below what I think is the natural level. You could live with this level of expansionary, what we call monetary policy, if you had a really tight fiscal policy.